Other than live animals, have there any PongSats that you've had to turn away?
Oh, we just had to delay 6. We did 600 for the school children in Fukushima, Japan, just this last week on this last mission set. And some of the teachers came over and some of the administrators came over from Japan to participate in the mission. And they asked to do one special ceramic PongSat. And we were going to put it on the deck and have signatures on it from many of the people in the town that lost loved ones. And it ends up being about the size of a baseball. And it was ceramic. And it was hollow, but it was a stoneware that they had made. So it was very, very heavy. And they'd already talked to us about it, so we compensated for the weight, and that was fine. But they brought 7 of them. And we couldn't fly all 7 because it was an extra 10 pounds of So we've hung on to those 6, and then on a couple of our missions during the summer, we'll fly one, and so we'll spread those out. But other than that, we've never had to turn one down. Every now and then you can have ones that come in heavy. We generally have a 3-ounce rule. It's hard to get 3 ounces in here. But every now and then, if it's stacked with boards and batteries and things, it'll come in heavier than that. But the other 300 are all coming in lighter. So we found to be, as long as it's not a safety issue, to be fairly flexible, on the design parameters. Because our goal is to get people flying, not to make them fit some rigid thing, and to accommodate as many. We're into bulk flight. It used to be in the 50s where everyone dissected a frog in biology. And that's kind of was the standard thing that everybody got and grew up with, almost a bit of Americana in school. We want them all to do a space experiment to be their standard thing, where if everyone in the country has a memory of a space experiment in junior high or high school, I think that would change everyone's attitude. So we've done 6,400 of these with about 25,000 students so far. So we only have 1 million or 2 to go.
Well, tell me now about the MiniCubeSats.
The MiniCube, this is a MiniCube for small cube. And it's kind of the next step up. Now, the PongSats are always free. We don't charge anything for them. It's kind of part of our mission. But it gets expensive. Because when you fly a PongSat, you don't just get the PongSat back. You get a DVD with all the mission video, the onboard, the in-flight. You get a certificate. You get all the mission data back. We don't care if you're 5 years old in elementary school or kindergarten or a university professor. You still deserve the mission data for your flight. But we're not millionaires. We're not a big aerospace company. So we do a lot of things to offset the costs of those missions. We put ads on the side like NASCAR with our sponsors, and we do a couple commercial gigs every year as part of this. But one thing we wanted to do to kind of take it to the next step is to do a slightly bigger payload, kind of like a CubeSat. But I think CubeSats are too big and too expensive. Literally thousands and thousands of universities build CubeSats every year, and 3 or 4 are flown every year, if that. And the next year, it's not that you're flying off the 2,000 or 3,000 built from last year, because there's another 2,000 or 3,000 built that year. There are probably no shorter than 20,000 to 25,000 CubeSats sitting on shelves built by students that will never, ever fly. It's one of those things that the idea was great. The standardization was great. To be able to build to a set of parameters made everything easier. But the supply side of actual flights just never materialized. People are starting to fly less ride-alongs because of insurance concerns and things. So we didn't want to make another thing for people to build and set on a shelf. This is a flight program. Like the idea with PongSats, every PongSat flies. If we get an extra 600 when we were going to do a 200 mission and we got an 800 to come in, we find a way to fly them. No PongSat sits on the shelf. And we wanted to make sure we did that with MiniCube, that every MiniCube, it's a flight program. They're not building a box. They're getting a mission. So here's how small can you make it so that you can still afford to fly it and to keep the cost down, because we charge for these. and we wanted people to afford it. But not afford it like they do most space programs. Affordable space program means you got a grant from NASA. If you're flying a minicube, you may have only put $5,000 into a CubeSat. You may have only paid $5,000 to build your CubeSat, but it's going to be $40,000 to $200,000 to fly the thing. So the flights end up not being paid by the universities. Being able to afford it means you got a grant. National Science Foundation, a NASA grant. We wanted the people to afford it out of pocket. What could they actually afford to really do? Balanced with that is how cheap can we make it and still be able to actually fly it? So instead of a $40,000 mission, which that's been a placeholder, but no one can really do missions that cheap. The reality is, 80 to 100 plus to do them. So we just wanted to also get a little bit of shock value, and so we're flying the missions for $320 each, because it's slightly less than the price of a cell phone. If you don't pay for the services. If you get a service deal, well, you get them free. But we figured that's actually within the range of a science class, of high school science class, even maybe some of the high school science students, definitely in the range of a college science student. Even an elementary school could pay for one if they wanted to do that, although they're pretty well taken care of by the PongSats. And then the other question, because it's so small, we can fly, the idea is that on our PongSat vehicle, our high rack, we call it, not only can we now fly 300 PongSats, but we fly 20 minicubes. And then we also have the ads that we do and sell the ad space on the side. So that one mission with the minicubes is actually a commercially viable space vehicle, not relying on grants, not a low-cost program because NASA's funding it. But that one flight pays for all its operational costs, pays 2 months' rent on the building. And then we typically fly 4 of them at a time, which end up, there's cost savings. You only rent the truck once. So we end up a profit-making aerospace company while delivering 300 free payloads to researchers and students, and the cheapest thing in town by several orders of magnitude for flights. Because, tired of missions happening in 2s and 3s. Even in, NASA wants to do those 30 CubeSats that they're paying for, which is actually a great program. I don't mean to put that program down. But we've got to get past 30 in 2 years. They said they had 7,000 people apply, universities, for those 30 spots. And those people are spending more than the 320 just competing for it. By the time you fly back to Washington a few times, you spend a few full-time employees' time for a couple weeks writing those proposals up, you've well exceeded the price you could have bought and guaranteed to have them 20 flights with us. And that's the whole idea of the minicubes. We want to create 1,000 a year market, not a 2 or 3 a year market. And just fly like mad, because we like to fly. And then it pays for our stuff, because on all these flights with the PongSats and the minicubes and the ads and things that are paying the way, and all our commercial work, we always sneak 3 or 4 experiments for our research, that why we're there in the first place on board. So our research pays for our own research. And when your research paying for your research, that's your killer app everyone's searching for. So the more work you do, the more work you get to do. And we've been pulling that off now for over 3 decades. Like I say, we haven't become the big, making big money, but we've always paid the bills. We've always been able to meet all our research needs and never fallen short for any kind of funding. But we've only had maybe 1 extra nickel in the bank at any given moment.